The process of our spiritual formation in Christ, in which we gradually become more and more like Him, is one where we shift from worship of self to where we're the Lord of our own life, seeking to build our own kingdom.
Yeah.
To a life where Jesus is the Lord, where we worship Him and we actually seek to build His kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
That's primarily the shift that needs to be made in our lives.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Making History. My name is Brian.
And I'm Katie.
And we're the Hesses. And we're glad to be back.
We sure are.
So really quick, let's talk about our week.
Yeah.
You had a really fun revelation this week.
I did. And it was during breakfast time, and I was making toast, and I got the bread out of the toaster, and I started to cut off the crust for Isabel, because most of the time she ends up just leaving it on the plate anyways. The thought ran through my mind of man, I wish that she would eat the crust because it's the healthy part of the bread. And then I paused for a second. I was like, wait a minute. No, it's not. It's literally just bread. It's all the same ingredients.
All the same.
Literally nothing, no chemical reaction happens to the crust that makes it more nutritious or anything. It's literally just flour, water, salt.
It's all the same dough.
All the same things. And I was mind blown because I am 100% positive that as a kid, not even just as a kid, up until this week, believed that the crust of the bread was the healthier part.
Yeah.
And I was I need to know if I'm alone in this. Mm-hmm. So I popped a quick video on Instagram just to see, are there any people out there like me that believed that this was, and you did. You were in it with me.
I was.
You realized that you had never really thought about it.
And I was trying to trace back, where did I learn to believe that the crust is a healthier part of the bread? Yep. And the only thing I can think of, I don't have any memories of being told that.
Right.
As much as I feel as a kid, it was frowned upon to not eat the crust or cut off the crust.
Yes.
And somehow that translated to this is where the nutrients are.
Right. This must be, mom really wants me to eat the crust, so this must be healthy for me. It was just so crazy. But I was pleased to find out that I was not the only one.
Yeah.
Because it was it was more people than not that had that belief. Some people were no, you're crazy. It's just bread. But a majority of people said that they just my video helped them have that epiphany that it's all just bread. The crust is just a bit crispier.
Is more exposed to the heat.
It was wild.
That's it.
I could not get over that. It was so funny.
Yeah. And this is a change of subject, but you and I had kind of a shared revelation recently, just on you could say the difficulties of life.
Oh, yes.
So as you kind of go through life and you grow up and you progress and you enter different stages of life, there are maybe some things that you think are going to be the harder parts of life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there are things that people tell you are the harder parts of life. You are engaged and everyone just loves to tell you how hard marriage is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's their favorite.
You get pregnant for the first time and everyone tells you how hard raising kids is.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's, there's truth in that. And we've talked about that before. We agree and we disagree at the same time. But you and I are learning that one of the hardest parts of life is learning what to do with all the half-used paint cans that you inherit from the people who lived
from all the residents of your home.
We bought this house and we just haven't just felt dealing with it.
Yeah.
Because you can't just throw them away.
Nope.
You
and they sit in the garage, so they're a little bit out of sight, out of mind.
You don't see them. You put them back in the corner in the garage. You don't really think about them.
Yep.
But when we moved in, there's upwards of 20 paint cans.
Yeah.
That are a lot of them are half to 3/4 full.
Yes.
And it's old paint. It's
right. Not something that we're oh, we can use this.
Yeah. Or maybe we'll sell it. Maybe somebody likes this color. No.
Nope.
So we've been researching, okay, well, how, where can I take this? What do we have to do? And we've just been putting tons of cat litter and all these paint cans and letting it soak up the paint. So
it was a whole giant bag of cat litter for like 6 cans.
Yeah.
And so now we have to, it was one of those things like you went out to the store and you got the cat litter so that we could do it all. And then it only worked for like half of them, not even half of them. I was like, ow. Because we have a couple of those 5-gallon
which we haven't even touched those yet.
That are like nearly full.
Nearly full.
It's like, first of all, what are you people doing that you get so much paint and then you just waste it? Like, that's so much money. Mm-hmm. That's so much money. And then, how dare you just leave it for us to deal with? That's so annoying.
That is annoying.
Ugh.
I mean, we'd probably leave them.
Probably.
For the next week. If we had those, if we're being honest. And obviously we're joking. It's just like an annoying thing that
a huge inconvenience.
Yeah.
Because we want to, like, the whole point of us getting rid of these is because we want to make our garage nicer than it is. And right now it looks like we're having a really junky yard sale in there.
Yeah.
It's because it feels like there's stuff all over the place. But we're getting there.
A lot of strollers.
Lots of strollers.
I feel like
how do you end up with so many strollers?
Right. I don't know.
I mean, you have to have different types of strollers for different occasions, but hey, I digress. Let's move on.
Okay, so that's been our week.
Yep.
All right, let's keep going on the topic of discipleship.
All right.
It's that, and it's also the topic of lordship, because that's something kind of that we've been talking about, but that's also something I want to keep talking about.
Yeah.
And when I think about the topic of lordship, I come to the conclusion that someone is going to be like the Lord of our lives in the sense that there's going to be somebody that is like calling the shots, setting the direction, the course of our lives.
Sure.
In terms of like what we do, who we become, how we live, what our values are. Mm-hmm. And even if you're saved, it's not guaranteed that that person is Jesus.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't take that position by force. Mm-hmm. He's not going to make you listen to him.
Right.
And we know that's true because like we're not. Like, look at the church, and it's like,
yeah,
the church is
obvious.
not, yeah. Like, you and I are doing, like, we're working towards that. Mm-hmm. And I think even over the last couple of years, we have really, like, come to realize that even a lot of what it means to be a Christian, to be a disciple, and follow Jesus, maybe necessarily doesn't even mean what we thought it meant. And so, like, at least for me, I'm, like, having to rethink, like, what does it actually mean to, like, live the way Jesus would have us live?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, like just growing up being a Christian, and I don't think this was ever taught to me. It was just something that I kind of perceived as a kid growing up in the church. That it was like, yeah, I believe in Jesus. I read my Bible when I feel like I have to, and I go to church.
Yep.
And I try to be nice to people.
Yeah, and I'm learning too that we're kind of half in, half out of some very like charismatic circles, and so like even the term we use at our church that our pastor picked up for us is that we're contemplative charismatics, which perfectly defines who we are, like as a church. But I've noticed that like in a lot of charismatic and like you could even say Pentecostal circles, that there's still such a push to make your relationship with Jesus about just you and him and just you two together kind of building the life that you want.
Yeah.
And as I read the Gospels and I see the life of Jesus and what he taught, it was always about you and him working together to help make the world the place it needs to be, the place he dreams it could be.
Others,
right. And it's always about like loving other people, serving other people. You want to be the greatest in the kingdom, become the least, become the servant.
Right.
And it's always like outwardly focused. And there is a sense where, and we'll get into this, there is a sense where you do need that time with the Lord as you're establishing a relationship with him to let him tell you who you are and let him like breathe life into that part of you, the parts of you that maybe are still doubting that you actually are like made new and reborn, that he does love you and that he, has lots of thoughts for you and plans for your life.
Yeah.
It's easy to doubt those things. So there is a sense where you need to establish that, where it's like, I believe that I'm fully loved. I believe that I'm fully new. And I believe that I'm somebody who has the capacity to advance the kingdom of God in all my spheres of influence. So there is that building up of an identity, but then it's like, it's not meant to just stay there.
Right.
It's not just you and Jesus sitting in a comfy corner for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah.
It's that, but then it's like, go and do something.
What are you going to do?
What are you doing?
What this time brought into your life?
Yes.
Like, are you just really going to keep that to yourself?
Right.
And because that really looks pretty selfish if you think about it. Like, I'm going to get all of this from Jesus and I'm going to just keep it. Where like, I mean, the Great Commission. That's not what you're doing if you're sitting alone in your comfy corner, like you said.
Yeah. And it's that lifestyle that Jesus modeled of like coming and going, coming in the sense of like coming into the presence of the Father and just being alone, having that silence and solitude and prayer. But then it was always that, but then he would go out to the people. Yeah. And then he would come in and he would go out. And it was just that lifestyle that he modeled. But I think for a lot of Christians, it's just like the coming in of like, I just need to get alone with Jesus and let him tell me how much he loves me. And then that's going to be the rest of my life. Yeah. It's like, that's great.
It's super necessary to know how loved you are. Yes. But then what?
Yes. If you're not learning how to love people and how to serve people better, then it's just not it.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's unto.
Right.
So anyways, we've mentioned in previous episodes, I think it was last episode, we talked about how there's that quote that I love, that you are either intentionally being discipled by Jesus or you're unintentionally being discipled by the world.
Yep.
And what I love about that is it sets up, and I think this is very true, it kind of sets up this reality that there's only two directions that you're going in life. And I know we haven't really used yet the phrase like spiritual formation. Maybe that's something we'll talk about. We have used like sanctification and but the reality is that we are always being formed into the image of something in the sense that we're being highly influenced. There's forces of influence all around us.
Yeah.
The values that the culture of the world are built on are very like selfish, very me-centric, making life comfortable, making life easy, making life fast. And that's what the world is built on. And so if we orient ourselves toward the world, we will become more like it. We'll become more selfish. We'll become very like me-focused. It's all about what I want and getting my way.
Right.
And that actually reminds me of a great quote that I read in one of Dallas Willard's books. And he was contrasting love and pride. And he was saying that pride is actually the opposite of love. Where some may say fear, but pride is the opposite of love, because when you're operating in love and you're learning to love other people, the byproduct of that is you stop living with the arrogant assumption that you should always have your way, and you start living in such a way that other people start getting their way, which I just love that.
That is so good. Yeah.
But anyways, the world and the kingdom are like totally at odds. People use the phrase like the upside down kingdom.
Yeah.
So I see those being like the only two like viable options for us in life, either orienting ourselves toward Jesus or orienting ourselves toward the world.
Yeah.
Because like those are the two kind of polar opposite directions that we can go.
Right. Yep. And they're both, both sides are really eager for your attention.
For sure.
And affection.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you just walk outside, you're going to see an advertisement, even within neighborhoods. Like there's always like a lawn care sign or a political sign or something. There's always something trying to grab your attention, trying to like trying to like catch your heart and be like, hey, join me, come to me, use my product, come and be a part of this club. It's always something. Yeah. So it's easy to get sucked in to that. But like you said, like if we're not intentionally being discipled by Jesus, we're going to get caught up way easier in the noise of the world and all the clutter, because it's so loud and so busy.
Yeah. Everyone is trying to convince you of what the good life is. But I've been listening to some teaching on the Sermon on the Mount, and I'm learning what Jesus' audience would have, like how they would have thought about him pronouncing these different groups of people being blessed. So in the Beatitudes, it's like, blessed are the poor in spirit. And he goes through all of those. I think there's 9 of them. And the Greek word is makarios, but I'm learning that it may be better for us to understand what he was saying if we actually go back to the Hebrew word that the Greek word would have kind of come from, which is ashrei.
Okay.
And I'll try to keep this very short, but the word ashrei means the good life belongs to. It's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it's this idea like ashrei is relative in the sense that there's not one standard definition of ashrei, of the good life. You could say that ashrei is in the eye of the beholder. In that, like, people kind of, in a sense, decide for themselves.
Sure. Yeah.
What is the good life? Or like you and I could, we could go somewhere and we could see, a group of people in a certain culture living a certain way. And we could think, and I could say to you, like, this is the good life.
Yeah.
Like, this is ashrei, right? So Jesus is pronouncing, like, hey, like, the good life belongs to the poor in spirit.
Wow.
The good life belongs to the peacemakers, the good life. And so he's, with his like upside down ways of thinking, just declares that, like, actually the good life by my standards, like, if you were to ask me what's the good life, here's what I would tell you. The good life belongs to, and then he goes through the Beatitudes.
Wow.
And it's just really fascinating. Anyways, all that to say is that the kingdom and the world, they're at odds. Like you said, they're both trying very hard to be the one to influence who we become, how we think, how we live, what we do. But regarding our formation, I mentioned that we're always being formed into the image of something. And it's really, at the end of the day, it's whoever we give the place of influence to in our life.
Right.
Nobody can take that position by force. By default, it will be the world. And if we want it to be Jesus, we have to actually, like, turn to him, orient ourselves toward him.
Yes.
And be like, you're the one.
Yes.
Teach me to be like you.
Right.
Show me your ways. Show me how to live according to, like, your standards and your values.
Right. And place ourselves under his teachings and look to him in every decision, everything we say, everything we do. Like, okay, well, what would you do? Always coming back and asking that question. It's like you said, our default would be to, like, err towards what the world offers. And so if we want to become like Jesus, we have to know who it is that we're becoming like or wanting to become like.
Yeah. Yep. The process of our spiritual formation in Christ, in which we gradually become more and more like him, is one where we shift from worship of self to where we're the Lord of our own life, seeking to build our own kingdom.
Yeah.
To a life where Jesus is the Lord, where we worship him and we actually seek to build his kingdom. That's primarily the shift that needs to be made in our lives. You can either be a disciple of Jesus or the world. There's not really a third direction. And by default, it will be the world if you're not intentionally and actively choosing Jesus.
Yes.
By default, it'll be the world. And the world will teach you to be the Lord of your own life. And it'll teach you to build a life that's all about you, very you-centered, very selfish, where life needs to be as easy and comfortable as possible. Don't worry about people around you. You just take care of you.
Yep.
But to become a disciple of Jesus, again, it takes intentionality. You have to purposefully orient yourself towards him because his ways are opposite of the world.
Right. Yeah.
So to orient yourself toward Jesus requires saying, I actually want to do things your way. I want you to be the Lord. My way hasn't gone super well.
Yeah.
I want to live the way you would have me live. I want to follow your ways. I want to know your values. And I want you to teach me how to live the way we ought to live.
Yeah. And the thing about, like, the two, the world and the kingdom of God, the world is always shouting out the message, like, your joy will be found when you get this, or you'll be satisfied as soon as you have this car, or you have this amount of money, or, like, it's
title,
endless. There's
it's
always
product.
something that the world is like, you need this in order to be fulfilled.
Yes.
But in the kingdom of heaven, your joy is found in the person of Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's not something, he is not something to be earned. He is not something that we have to fight for. He's there, ready, waiting for us to say, I want you.
Yeah.
And I want you to be the Lord of my life. I want you to be the source of my joy. And, you know, of course, he has amazing gifts to offer. Like the world is trying to say, like, look at all these amazing things. The Lord also has amazing things and gifts to offer. So it's not saying that, like, if you go away from the world, you're not going to get the stuff. But the stuff becomes obsolete, really. And it's so far off of, like, your mind and your heart that, like, when those things come, it's like, oh, wow, Lord, you're so good. Yeah. It's not, oh, wow, look at how awesome I am and all this cool stuff that I have. It's like, Lord, you are so good that I am so blessed with all of these things. But really it boils down to, like, he is the source of our fulfillment and our satisfaction and our joy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it, that the world will convince you that you'll be so happy and fulfilled when you just hit this. Whether, and it could be like a job title, and it could be it could be a paycheck, it could be the car, or just, you know, the income. And the thing about that is, whenever you hit that benchmark, whatever that is, it'll always be like, well, the next, here's the next thing, here's the next step. And
congratulations,
always,
high five, you did this. Yeah. What else are you going to do?
Happiness is always just beyond wherever we are. Yeah. It's always chasing more and more and more. But yeah, I love that. In the kingdom, it's just not that way. Life is so much simpler in the kingdom. And there's a joy that you have access to when you start living Jesus's way that you don't have access to when you don't live his way.
Absolutely.
But there is a joy that comes in, like, serving people. There's a joy that comes in generosity that you just can't access apart from that, because those things actually, like, unlock that. Yeah. I actually recently had a conversation with Nora about that, just trying to help her understand the nature of God's kingdom and how, like, the things that Jesus asks us to do and the ways he asks us to live are sometimes going against how we maybe like what we are currently desiring to do. Yeah. Because again, the world is teaching us to be very selfish. But if you can, like, work against the grain of your desire and find a way to just do the things that Jesus is asking you to do. But I just explained to Nora, like, I know your little sister can be annoying, or I don't remember what the situation was, why I even brought this up. But I just challenged her, and I just said, like, I wonder if you would feel differently because they were fighting and she was just being really grumpy and really short with Isabel. Yeah. And so I just, like, kind of proposed to her, like, you know, like, well, first I just told her a little bit about the kingdom and how it works, but how, like, I know you're feeling one way and you want to act that way. You want to act in accordance with how you're feeling. But what if instead you went out of your way to do something really kind for Izzy and you actually, like, let her have the thing that she was wanting. Yeah. And you found joy in knowing that, like, you played a part in helping her have what she wanted, you know? Yeah. I don't think it landed. But
I don't know. Maybe.
We'll keep chipping away at it.
So often those things, like, they'll say it back and it's like, oh, you were listening. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we just had that conversation. I'm just trying to find ways to help her understand that, like, and even as we're learning, like, I have desires that are just ingrained in me by the world that I just know aren't going to satisfy me. Right. I know that they're not going to. Yep. So it's just a matter of coming to the point where it's like, okay, Jesus, for real. Yep. I want to do things your way because I know that that's where real satisfaction, real joy is found.
Yes, absolutely. And just kind of funny on that note of, like, the ingrained worldly desires. We have gotten just kind of like a random tip. Like, we've gotten really good, I think, at, like, if we want something, we'll, like, which you've been good at this for way longer than I have, but you sit on it. Yeah. And wait. And, like, if you forget all about it, clearly it was not actually a desire. It was just something that was, like, very fleeting, you know, or it wasn't a need or necessary at all. So, like, the dresser, for example. Yeah. In our room, we've been, like, we need more space for clothes.
Yeah.
And so we've had our eye on this like Walker Edison dresser, and it's a little bit expensive.
I'll back up a little bit. Because we have like a set that all matches.
Right.
And so the dresser we were looking at is in the same family.
Yes.
Right. And it's not even that expensive. Like it's not,
that's
it's
true.
not an expensive dresser.
Yeah.
But it is just, it's the Hess way to like, and I think this was just because I saw my parents live this way my whole life.
Yeah.
But like, we don't buy things super spontaneously. We don't make expensive purchases spontaneously.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
We research where we want to spend our money well. And like, that's been my whole life. Like my dad would probably do, a month of research before buying a new microwave, where a lot of people would just go out and get one. Yeah. Just go out and get whatever one.
The microwave. Yeah.
So anyways, that's the Hess way.
Yes. Yeah. So if you want to work on just like practical ways to see if like you're just filling your worldly desires, just take a minute.
Yep.
Take a breath. And if you keep thinking about it, then okay. But if it's out of your brain after a day or two, you probably don't need it.
Yeah.
Because we finally went and got the dresser online
we
last
did
night.
After 6-8 months at least of thinking about it.
Yep.
And again, it wasn't even expensive.
Right. Like it's just a thing that
it wasn't that we couldn't afford it.
Do
it
we
was
need
just
it
that
really?
Yeah.
Like
I don't like to spend money like foolishly. I don't like to spend it super spontaneously. Especially when I know that, like you said, most of the time you're just feeding a desire that has crept in to convince you that this is the thing that'll make you happy. When I've learned if you just don't buy the thing, you can still find a way to be happy.
Right.
And so then it's like, okay,
well, make it through.
you'll be fine if you just don't have whatever thing it is.
Yeah. And those like purchases on a whim are just the worst too. Because like you like it for a little bit and then it's like, oh, man, I wish I would have saved my money so I could do this now. But
yeah. When I read the Bible, that's one of the things that like stands out to me so much is like what the Bible and specifically what Jesus had to say about money.
Yeah. It's a hot topic.
It is. And spoiler alert, his ways are not the world's ways.
No, if
I
you
don't
could
know
guess.
if you haven't caught that yet, but there is this like, again, to come back to what I was saying earlier, like we do run in some kind of charismatic, semi-Pentecostal circles. And there has just been this trend where like people have loved to make the gospel, and there's this term prosperity gospel, but people have loved to make the gospel and make specifically Jesus this thing that we can like almost like hack to make ourselves rich and to make life easy and comfortable, like I've been saying.
The Jesus hack.
It's like, oh, okay, God really loves me. He loves to give good gifts. He's a God who blesses. So he must want my life to look like X, Y, and Z. And then you fill in whatever like American Western values that have been ingrained in you by the world.
Right.
And so often it's like those are not values of the kingdom. He does want you to have good things, but he wants you to take the good things that you have and use them for the benefit of other people.
Right.
Jesus is quoted in Acts saying, it's more blessed to give than to receive. To receive is, you're blessed if you receive. But you're more blessed if you give. So I didn't mean to go down that tangent.
No, but it's a good one. So.
Here we are. So there's just some more word dumping from us on
there you go. There
discipleship and lordship and just why Jesus is the way. His ways are the best.
The best way.
Yep. Okay. We do have a couple favors for everybody listening. First, if you're listening on any audio platform, if you could do us a favor, if you have found any value in our content, if you could leave us a good review, that's a very small thing you can do that helps us in a really big way. Also, if you're listening on YouTube and you're watching this, if you could like this video and subscribe, that's also a very small thing that you can do that helps us out in a really big way. I think that's going to be it.
All righty.
Okay. Well, once again, my name is Brian.
And I'm Katie.
And we're making history. We'll see you next time.